I was working an overnight flight from Atlanta to Buenos Aires, nearly 10 hours in the air, mostly over open water. I was the lead flight attendant that night, and our cabin was full. Mostly business travelers, a few students, and a handful of retirees. Standard crowd. Around 2 hours in, we hit cruising altitude. The cabin lights dimmed and people started settling into their seats or nodding off. That's when I heard it. A baby crying, but not from any of the passengers. It was coming from beneath us. At first I brushed it off. Sound travels weirdly on planes. Maybe someone had their phone volume too high, or there was a baby crying toward the back of the cabin, and it just echoed strangely. But the sound kept going. Soft at first, then louder. And it wasn't just crying. It was screaming. It sounded like the kid was in pain. I walked the aisles, checked on the families we had on board. One baby, fast asleep in a carrier. Everyone else was either passed out or staring at me, confused, wondering why I looked so rattled. The sound wasn't in the cabin. It was coming from the cargo hold. 15 minutes later, I pulled the captain aside and told him. He gave me the same look everyone gives when they think you're being overdramatic, but he admitted he'd heard it too. And not just him. One of the co-pilots had heard it when he stepped out to use the lavatory. Something was down there, but it made no sense. The cargo hold isn't accessible during flight, and it's not pressurized the same way. No human should be down there, let alone a baby. The crying went on and off for the rest of the flight. Sometimes it would fade completely, then return suddenly, louder, more desperate. When we landed, the captain radioed ahead to have ground crew open the hold immediately. We told them there might be a person down there. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a stowaway. Maybe someone had somehow hidden a kid in a suitcase, even though that made no logical sense. But when the cargo doors were opened, the crying stopped. The first thing I noticed was that several bags were scattered, not thrown by turbulence, not jostled by landing. Something had pushed through them deliberately. Then one of the baggage handlers called us over. He looked pale, confused. He'd found something. Not a baby, but a baby's blanket, stuffed in a duffel bag that wasn't tagged. No name, no destination code. The bag wasn't scanned into our system. It was like it had never been checked in. Inside, beneath the blanket, was a toy, a little rattle. The plastic was cracked and one end was stained dark red. It looked like it had been there for years. The hold was searched thoroughly. Nothing. No signs of life. No explanation. But later that day, maintenance flagged something strange. One of the ventilation access panels beneath the cargo floor was open, as if someone had crawled out of it. The airline never gave us an official explanation. I asked around, dug into incident reports, tried to find anything like what we experienced. That's when I found it. 12 years ago, a flight from Sao Paulo to Chicago made an emergency landing. A woman had gone into labor mid-air. She was only 7 months along. The baby didn't survive. It's the same plane we flew that night. Ever since then, I haven't been able to shake what I heard, because sometimes, when the cabin gets quiet, I swear I still hear it. Just for a second, a soft, distant cry from beneath my feet. I've been a flight attendant for 6 years now. I've seen a lot of strange things in the sky. Turbulence that felt like the hand of God, passengers who lost it mid-air, even a guy who tried to light a cigarette and nearly got tackled. But none of that prepared me for what happened on Flight 237. The old woman who boarded the plane that day claimed she'd died on that route 40 years ago. It was a red-eye from Phoenix to Seattle. Middle of the week, half-empty flight, mostly quiet. Boarding was smooth until she stepped on. Seat 14C. She was maybe in her 60s, pale, quiet, holding an old leather handbag like it was something precious. She handed me her ticket and I smiled like I always do. "Welcome aboard," she said. "I've flown this route before, but I never made it to Seattle." Her voice was soft, but there was something off about it. I figured maybe she was confused or grieving someone. But when I walked past her again later, I noticed something strange. Her boarding pass said her name was Margaret Ellis. That name, I knew it. Not personally, but from training. Flight 237 had crashed once, back in 1983. A weather-related disaster. Most of the crew died, all but a few passengers. One of the fatalities, a woman named Margaret Ellis. Same name, same seat number, 14C. I thought, maybe it's a coincidence, but then I saw her ID. She had dropped it getting something from her purse. The photo was faded. The plastic was old. Issue date, 1981. And the birth date would have made her 84 today. But she didn't look a day over 65. And in the photo, same face, no aging, same hair, same expression. I asked the captain to quietly check the manifest from the old crash. He was skeptical until he pulled it up. Not only was the name there, but the photo I'd seen was part of the crash report. Margaret Ellis had died when Flight 237 slammed into a hillside during descent. There was even a quote from a surviving passenger. She looked at me and said, "I've flown this route before. I never made it to Seattle." The same thing she said to me. I went back to her row, but she was gone. Her seat was empty. I checked the lavatory. Nothing. I asked the other flight attendant. No one had seen her get up. And that old handbag? It was still under the seat. Inside was a boarding pass from 1983. Same name, same route. We searched the plane top to bottom. No one ever saw her leave. Her ID vanished. The bag disappeared mid-flight, but hours later, after we landed, a janitor found a folded piece of paper tucked behind seat 14C. It just said, "I made it this time.